I was in the army, stationed in Germany. We were out on a field exercise. We were way out in the middle of nowhere, camping in a tree line. I had already been woken up once to pull my shift of guard duty. So later that evening, when I heard someone quietly saying my name, I sat up in a disgruntled fashion and said to him, "I already pulled my shift." At this point, he said, "Don't move." Not understanding what was happening, of course, I sat up to see what was going on. However, when you're away from civilization and camping in the woods, and there is no moon, you don't see anything at all that late at night. When he repeated himself with a hint of fear in his voice, I froze. I knew he could see, because the man on guard had night vision goggles, so I quietly asked him, "What's going on?" Just as quietly, he said, "There's a family of wild boar a few feet away from you." I had heard about wild boar in the area, and had seen the signs of their digging for truffles. I also knew how dangerous they were, so it's fair to say I was more than a little nervous. I sat there peering in the darkness, seeing nothing but blackness, and listened as intently as I ever had in my life. Sure enough, I heard the sounds of several animals moving through the brush near me, and I also heard the all too familiar grunts of wild boar. Even worse, I heard the softer squeals of piglets. Knowing I was in imminent danger, I ever so slowly reached for my rifle. But when my hand touched it, I realized it would do me no good, since it was loaded with blanks, and we were not issued bayonets on most field exercises. So what did I do? I moved my hand slowly across the ground and found a sturdy tree branch I found earlier in the day, which I held between myself and the sounds, so that if I were charged, I might deflect the boar, knowing that if a boar came after me, the branch would be useless once it was on me. I quietly pulled out my Gerber gator, my field knife of choice at the time. With one hand, I gently opened the folding blade. Normally, the sound of the blade locking in place is very hard to hear, but in the dead silence of the night, the click was all too audible. Apparently, I attracted the attention of the mother boar, because my friend then said, "Don't move." Though it was a whisper, I could hear very real concern in his voice. On top of that, I heard louder sounds of a bigger animal, not piglets, moving through the bushes, and it was getting closer. So I sat there, branch held out in one hand, knife in the other hand, drawn back and ready to strike when I felt the boar hit me. Then I held my breath and waited. After a few grunts and maybe a minute of waiting, which felt like a lifetime, I heard the family of boar moving away. I continued to wait with that stupid branch held out, and my knife hand in the air, ready to defend myself, until my friend said it was clear. Later that day, when he was telling the story to the rest of our squad, he said the mother boar was probably around 200 pounds, and since he was an avid hunter, I believed him.
Number 2.
I lived in a place which had street dogs. Dog pounds and animal control didn't exist where I lived in my childhood. I grew up accepting these dogs as part of the environment, as they were never much trouble. I used to feed them scraps of food, and they used to sleep under parked cars on the street. One night, I was barefooted and accidentally stepped on the tail of one of the dogs. I was alerted to this by its low grizzling and its slow and deliberate emerge from under the car. Its muzzle was bared wide and open. I panicked and stepped back a few paces too many and ended up kicking another dog with the back of my foot. I thought, oh fuck. Now, I edge away to the middle of the street and backwards away from the dogs. 3 dogs emerge out of darkness and continue their low throatly growl with the occasional bark. Remember, I'm still barefoot, and now my sensory experience was fully heightened. As these dogs continued their sounds, they were joined by 2 more. There was a leader of the pack in the middle, the first dog I stepped on, and 2 on either side, flanking him. I continued to backstep, and I had about 5 yards distance between me and them, when the dog furthest away from me crouched for a microsecond. It was a crystalline moment, and I knew that this dog was preparing to spring on me. Fear kicked in, adrenaline surged, and I spun 180 degrees on heel, facing away from them, and took flight. At this point I should mention that we used to live at the end of a cul-de-sac, and everything which has happened was purely based on reflexes. I did not think it through. I took flight. I ran the fastest I've ever ran in my life. It was a quarter mile, and I was barefoot. I don't think my feet even touched the ground. I could hear the dogs barking behind me and the clip-clop of their feet. About halfway, I feel something wet nuzzle the end of my calf. I pay no attention since I'm keen on outpacing the dog. Curiosity got the better of me, I guess, or maybe I feared it was blood, and I looked back. It was the nose of the dog leading the running pack. When my left leg was behind in the run, the dog synced its run to project its body forward. When I think about it later on, I marvel at the creature's preying strategy, that its neuromuscular coordination realized the periodicity of my motion, and programmed the dog's limbs to ensure minimal distance between us. Now, I am reaching the other end of the cul-de-sac, and I'm distinctly aware of 2 white small dogs who are at the end of the leash of a house owner whom I barely know. It's still dark, but I can make out the dogs were straining on the leashes. He seemed like a big enough guy. He could have held on to them, I suppose. But, to my horror, he dropped the leash. Now, with less than 10 yards between me and the approaching pet dogs, I'm still being chased by these 5 strays with almost 0 distance between. Again, my exit was cut off. Normal road, dogs in front, dogs in back. In one fluid motion, I sideways jumped the fence of the house at the end of the street, the guy who owned the pet dogs. I don't know how I missed the sharp wood edges. I don't know where I got the grip. I don't know how I figured out this exit strategy. I jumped over the fence, about 4 feet tall maybe, and landed on the other side, rolled over and didn't move. I closed my eyes and was breathing hard. That's all I knew. My body was screaming to move. My eyes were wide because I had this feeling I was seeing more than normal. My field of view had increased. After that instant, I got up to see if the dogs were jumping over too. To my relief, I saw the pet dogs giving a counter chase to the strays and driving them back. The owner of the house and dogs saw me and gave my mom a call. He took me inside his house and put a blanket around me. I was in shock for like 10 minutes. My mom told me that my lips were black and blue, and my skin was almost translucent, and I wouldn't speak or respond to anyone. Just sitting there, with eyes wide open as saucers, and heaving like crazy. Luckily, I wasn't bit, but my overprotective mom got me a rabies booster shot anyway. But that's the scariest animal experience I've ever had.
Number 3.
A few years ago, in my freewheeling salad days, I spent a few months backpacking through China before traveling down into northern Pakistan to teach English for 6 months. It was such a great adventure, I spoke about 10 words of Mandarin, but man, I had fun. I especially love Xinjiang and the far west of China, with its vast, stretching, Taklamakan desert, full of magical singing sand dunes and secret Buddhist cave paintings. It's such a tragedy that the province was recently descended into horrifying ethnic violence, because it's truly a place of sublime beauty, and one of the last great wilderness on earth. Anyway, I was traveling with some friends from Kashgar, the great Wild West market town, south through the Karakoram Mountains to northern Pakistan. It's a 3-day trip through some of the most remote country I've ever experienced. As you wind up into the mountains, you'll occasionally see a lone yurt in the distance. Its hazy spiral of chimney smoke visible for miles, and some yaks, and that's it. For days, it was so beautiful. We drive on and on, climbing higher and higher, until we eventually reach the icy Kahanjarab Pass, the deep crack high up in the mountains that eventually leads down into the soft green valleys of northern Pakistan. The small, lonely Chinese-Pakistani border crossing post is here, and after we get our passports stamped, I notice that there's a public loo, so I scoot off to take advantage of the facilities. I know it's going to be hours until there's any other chance. The loos are grim. Grim. I've been in some terrible toilets before, but this is really bad. The waist-high cubicle walls, no problem. The absence of doors, no big deal. The long drop loos, psh, I'm a modern woman. You can't faze me. But the piles and piles and piles of used sanitary pads heaped up on the floor. Yeah, that's different. Haven't seen that before. And the smell is beyond anything I've encountered previously. I'm genuinely taken aback by it. But I cheerfully steel myself, because I am a trooper, goddammit. And anyway, I have to pee like nobody's business. So I wade through the piles of bloody pads, unbutton my trousers, and carefully, cautiously balance myself over one of the holes, making sure not to look down. I'm trying to relax, so I can unclench enough to wee. So I'm thinking happy thoughts about daisies and bunny rabbits and spotless bathrooms full of hot running water and rolls of soft white toilet paper and sweet jasmine scented soap. And all of a sudden, I feel a warm, moist gush of air on my cold, bare ass. I look down. Between my legs, there was a large pink hairy pig snout, sniffing the air inquisitively. There's a pig, wandering around in a long drop, sniffing my ass. I'm not what you'd call an athletic person. I'm the kind of girl who's really into sitting comfortably. But you have never, and I mean never, seen anyone move as fast as I did right then, yanking my trousers up as I leapt gazelle-like over the filth and the blood and the shit and the piss and out the door and through the gate and down the road and over the mountains and far, 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 far away until I collapse due to the fact that I am having a massive shit-loving pig-induced myocardial infarction. Drive! I shout at my friend in the front seat of our Land Rover, lightly but hysterically stabbing myself in the thigh with a tightly clutched penknife. A pig just sniffed my ass. Drive! For the love of God, drive! So he drove, rocketing off past the yaks and the glaciers and the pigs and down into Pakistan. And I cannot put into words how much of a relief it was to enter that blessed realm where the people are friendly and the curry is good, and they will not make you eat pork. Ever, ever, ever. Amen. What is up, guys? I hope you enjoyed this collaboration I had with Dark Stories. I'd like to give them a huge shout out and thank you for doing this collaboration with me. If you want to go check out the other video we did together, go click over on their channel.
Go check it out! Go check it out! Go check it out!
The link will be in the description below. As you can tell, I'm a little bit sick, so hopefully it didn't affect the narrations too bad.